our viewers and our listeners. My name is Carissa, and I am your host today from Sickle Cell Foundation out of Tallahassee, Florida. And we are here in Tallahassee to help families and individuals in the community living with sickle cell disease, as well as work to increase, the knowledge and understanding of sickle cell. And we want people to be aware of it. What is sickle cell disease for those that don't know or don't really have much, education behind it, but it is a red blood disorder that is inherited. And that means that it's passed down the same way we get the color of our eyes, skin, and hair from our parents. And for a child to inherit sickle cell, both parents need to carry the gene for it. There's no way to catch it. There's no way to catch sickle cell, and it's not contagious. You're born with it. Well, that also means that with healthy red blood cells, they're smooth and round and bendable, so they can easily flow through blood vessels and carry oxygen to every parts of our body. In sickle cell disease, the red blood cells can change and form a sickle shape or a crescent moon shape. And those cells become stiff and sticky and cause them to blockage and flow. It breaks down the blood vessels in the body. So that blood disorder is inherited 1 out of every 400 African Americans, but it's not exclusive to African Americans, as you would know. It's other groups, ethnic groups that are affected, such as Hispanic, Asians, Italians, and folks of the Middle Eastern descent. They can also inherit this condition. So here at the foundation, one of our ongoing projects here is to hear real stories from real warriors. And that is a way for us to connect to our community, to highlight those living with it, their real experiences in the real world. We hope that providing a space for those like yourself will bring informative education and research to patients, the clients, and families that need it. And what better way to do that than to bring in, again, someone like you living with it, to contribute to sickle cell awareness. And today we have a special guest, and I'm excited because I'm meeting you just like everyone else. They are a recent FAMU graduate and live with sickle cell anemia. I would like to welcome Miss Tiara. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful where you are.
Yes, here in sunny Jacksonville, Florida.
So we're not too far from each other.
Yeah, no. I'm actually from Jacksonville. I've been here for about 16 years. Military family, so we just kind of settled down here. Then I went to Tallahassee to get my degree, and now I'm back home.
Nice. So we know you're a FAMU graduate, and tell us a little bit of your background. What age you were diagnosed with sickle cell. We could start there.
Yeah, of course. So when I was born, they obviously ran the genotype test, and they found that I had sickle cell anemia. I have SS. Around 10 months, I started having complications with it. I had to get my spleen removed at an early 10 months. But yeah, I was diagnosed with it at birth.
Okay. And what was your major at FAMU? What did you major in?
So I got my degree in psychology with a minor in liberal arts and a concentration in industry organization. Okay. So this human resources, talent acquisition.
Wonderful. Could you share what your experience was as a child? Anything that you may remember that you experienced having sickle cell?
Yeah, of course. So I'm not an only child. I do have a sister. She does not have the trait. She doesn't have the disease. She's a lucky child. So with that, I experienced a lot of complications right around like 6 or 7 beyond the 10 months where I had to get my spleen removed. And it was just really difficult because, of course, my parents have the trait, but nobody really understood what I was going through, especially the doctors. I mean, I think everybody in the sickle cell community can really speak to the lack of understanding and the lack of knowledge within the healthcare community and the industry. So it almost felt a little lonely. I'm 6 years old and I'm really going through all of this pain that nobody can explain to me because they don't understand it themselves. So it was lonely, to say the least.
I definitely believe that. I feel like it's a lot of unlearning to do, even with our parents and family members too, when it comes to sickle cell. So that is another thing that a lot of families should know, that we've got a lot of unlearning to do and relearning around sickle cell. Definitely, because I think the misunderstanding of it, not just with the community, but even the healthcare professionals too, where, the unlearning needs to happen. Absolutely. So how did you hear about the foundation? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So obviously I went to school in Tallahassee. I got my degree from FAMU. And being out there, I just quickly learned that even African American communities don't know a lot about the illness. So I feel like I was given opportunities. I was put in positions to have to educate the public on campus. And it really just continued as a community outreach. I was in multiple organizations to where I was really trying to push the initiative of getting people to understand what it is that not only I go through, but people sitting next to you in class go through as well. So once I kind of got my footing a little bit in Tallahassee, I started to do a little research. I got a really big pamphlet in the mail from the Sickle Cell Foundation. I requested all the information and I started just handing it out on campus within my organizations. That way everybody could gain kind of like a small grasp of what was going on in their community. Beyond that, once I got that information, I really started researching outlets within the community that I could go to and rely on. So the Sickle Cell Foundation naturally just came to light. And I also participated in the 5K walk/run. And that's really probably, I think, my sophomore year. So that's really when I started getting into what was going on within the Sickle Cell Foundation within the Tallahassee community.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I'm curious to know what lifestyle modifications, if you needed to modify, that currently you're implementing in your life now as an adult with sickle cell.
So naturally growing up, I always understood that cold climates, extremely hot climates I had to stay away from. That was mainly the thing that was instilled in me. Everybody's in the summer jumping in 60-degree water, and that just can't be me. So growing up, that was just what I kept in my mind. So I kind of started to implement that as I grew up, bundling up, putting on layers, so much so that I prefer winter because I know that I can dress in layers, and I know that I can stay warm. And I, in hot climates, I can dress in a way that, I'll take the jacket with me, but it's going to be extremely hot. So maybe take a tank top in case I do need to take off my layers. But beyond that, one of the main things that I'm recognizing right now as an adult is I know what works for me, and I know what I can bring to my care, that when my care team can implement it. So one thing that I'm kind of noticing is you have to know what works for you. You really have to study yourself. Nobody knows your body more than you know your body. So, carrying around those water bottles and making sure you have a water bottle so you can refill it, carrying around those jackets and just sort of maneuvering, the normal way that you would, but just start implementing things that is going to make you comfortable should you need it.
That's good. And that's another way of saying learn yourself, learn your body, study your body. I'm always encouraging myself, family, and those like you, learn yourself. You can know yourself just as much as your medical team. It's no wrong in that. That is the number one thing. So that's awesome. That's wonderful. I love that. I want to know, we're in Black History Month, and one of my biggest things is to talk about things that not really many like to talk about, and that is the uncomfortable discrimination that a lot of folks like you and even myself have faced in healthcare support. And I'm curious to know, have you ever faced any healthcare discrimination that may have created some sort of disconnect or gaps in your access and quality of healthcare?
So of course everybody has their own opinion, every healthcare worker goes to work thinking naturally that they know everything about their profession. It's people like me that show up to let you know that you don't, you know? So in that, I find myself attracting a lot of questions relating to the stigma of drug seeking. So that's something that I not only experience, but kind of live to debunk on a day-to-day basis. So that just goes back to kind of like learning yourself. That way you can implement things within your care team and they understand what you're expecting going in. So one of the main things I'm experiencing now moving to a different city, Tallahassee has the cancer center down there, Tallahassee Memorial. They have somewhere where you can go and get infusions, whether that be, you know, your blood transfusions, whether that be fluids, you know, they even have Dilaudid, and that's what works for me, Dilaudid and Benadryl. I find that that's, you know, the key to a lot of people.
That works for you, definitely.
Yeah. So I had that outlet. I was able to go into the center, maybe drip for 4 hours, have a ride home, and then I'm good to go. I avoid the hospital. Here, moving to Jacksonville, I am finding it very difficult to find those resources. So I'm finding hematologists and I'm finding, you know, my primary care, but I'm not finding an infusion center that it really can meet my needs when it comes to avoiding the hospital stays. So, you know, they refer me out to like pain management centers. So I'm speaking with this gentleman about what works for me, you know, and naturally you're looking at a 23-year-old African-American that says, I like Dilaudid. Dilaudid works for me. So they're looking at you like, excuse me, you know, so nobody wants to really give those high-level pain medicines. So with that said, I'm noticing that there's apparently an opioid crisis, an opioid epidemic that I wasn't aware of, that healthcare workers are educating me about. But in turn, I'm educating them, letting them know, you know, not everybody in the sickle cell community is drug seeking. And that's not to say that anybody in the sickle cell community is drug seeking, but because there's this epidemic, you can't exclude the demographic that needs this material. You know, so it's just a constant battle between you're seeking drugs and there's an epidemic and you're feeding to the epidemic. In turn, I'm, you know, letting you know, if I didn't have to get these drugs, you know, I wouldn't. But you have to make them readily accessible for people to get them. So that's one of the main things that I find myself fighting back and forth with the healthcare community.
I'm so glad you said that. That was great. I know someone else, you know, may have needed to hear that or is experiencing just the same thing. I've said this before. It's like there's a power imbalance within the healthcare system, and it's already in general, not just within the sickle cell community, but it's like where the power lies with the physician and other healthcare providers. Even so, the realm of patient-centered care, where the individual is the key member of their care, their support, and most times blindly it's, you know, people go in and they feel like they can't know just as much as their healthcare professionals. So again, you brought up a great point too. It made me think about, it can be intimidating. I'm a big patient, you know, advocate for everyone. Like, whatever decision you make, you stand on it, you use your voice, find people that will help you stand in that, and don't feel like you can't know your, you know, what's best for you. And so that's good. That is definitely great. And I appreciate you sharing that, because that was a very, very good point. Very good point. And that leads me to my next question, because you gave some good points. Any tips for warriors like yourself, and anything, you know, you feel they should take on with them to try?
Of course. So naturally, people know that there's a gap, and I don't know if it's worldwide. I know it's specifically here in Florida, where you're in pediatrics for, you know, up till probably 18, and then they transition you into kind of transition period between adult care. You usually stay there till 22, 23, sometimes 26, and then you move in to adult care. So between that transition period, develop, like I said, care plan. Like my mom she is my rock. She is supporting me through everything. She has instilled in me that nobody knows me better than I know me, and nobody is going to advocate for me better than I can advocate for myself. So she lets me know, don't be scared to tell these people, what works for you. Even so much so that she has put together like a booklet that has every single detail about my medical care.
That's wonderful.
My x-rays, it has my immunization records, it has all of that information in a book. And I have about 5 copies of it. So every time I'm going to a primary care, or every time I'm going into, a hematologist, or I'm trying to find a new doctor, here's my care plan. Here's what has worked for me in the past. Hand it off. And, we can discuss what you have available, what you can do for me, because doctors, they're always, what can a patient do for me and my paycheck? But it's really about what can you do for me? I'm coming to you, as a patient that needs help, assistance. What can your facility do for me? So get that care plan, put all of that together, understand what works for you, and introduce it when you're looking for, when you're transitioning from pediatrics to adult care, because that really helps.
Wonderful tip. Good tip. Another thing too, don't be afraid to interview doctors. I think a lot of people think the first one they go to, they have to stick with them. Don't be afraid to get a feel and who will resonate and understand and not judge you and not shame you into making decisions that can go against your own intuitive self, because a lot of times that's happening. A lot of our community is being shamed and feared into making a decision that they're not comfortable with, whatever that may be. Right. So that's a great tip. I love that tip. Any tips for the healthcare providers on the other end that, you would want to give them to better support those like you?
Right. I think there's so many outlets out there. There's so many different, like even the Sickle Cell Foundation serves as an outlet within the community. I think it's really imperative for healthcare providers, nurses specifically, to kind of dip themselves into our community, because they don't hear outside of, them coming into the rooms, reluctantly giving us our medication. You don't hear the outcries, you don't hear what we're going through. So really use those foundations and those communities to gain understanding of the demographic that you're tending to when we come into your hospitals. So just dip yourself, immerse yourself in the vast, the vast outlets. And I believe, if they do that, everything will kind of shift. Everybody will have a different understanding of patient care.
That's awesome. Very awesome. Very good tip for healthcare professionals to get more involved with the community-based programs that are emerged into, what's happening there. We're right there with these clients after they leave the hospital, before, during. So that's a very good, wonderful tip. Thank you for sharing that. And is there anything else you'd like to share?
I just want everybody to know within the sickle cell community that you're not limited. Like, I think that I speak for a lot of warriors when I say this. You're not limited to do, limit yourself to anything. Like, you're not, how do I even say this? Because it's just so heavy that a lot of warriors feel as if they can't do certain things. But don't limit yourself, open your horizons. What you limited yourself to as a child, tap into that again, tap into your passion, tap into what you couldn't do when you were a child, because your body changes, you change. You really just don't limit yourself. That's it.
That's it. Tiara said it. Don't limit yourself and get out of your own way. Trust yourself. Get your support. Don't be afraid to find support in like-minded individuals who will support and not judge you, because you'd be surprised at who you would connect with. And they may be going through something that you've went through, and you may help someone, and it may be an exchange there that's very healthy. So that's great. Don't limit yourself. So I would like to thank you on behalf of the foundation here in Tallahassee. We appreciate you sharing who you are, your story, because I know that this can help someone. As a parent, as someone with sickle cell trait, I have a warrior. I love hearing these stories, and I know this is what we need, to break those stigmas, to get the awareness out there like never before. For our viewers and our listeners, don't forget to like and share and connect with us online by visiting our website at sicklecellfoundation.org. You can check us out on our social media handles. That's on Instagram, Sickle Cell Leon, and Facebook, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is new. We're growing online, so this is exciting.
Yay.
Yes, and we hope every one of you have a peaceful, mindful, and healthy day, and we'll see you next time.